When they are creating a drawing or painting, many artists use a lot of different techniques to make us see more than what is there. Space, or the distance between objects, is one important example. What is in front of our eyes when we look at an artwork is a flat, two-dimensional canvas or paper. But with the careful use of lines, shapes, and colors, an artist can trick our eyes into seeing a three-dimensional space. They create an illusion of something that is not there, and they do this using math-based techniques. The painting in front of you is called Horse and Train by Alex Colville and is one of the most asked for paintings in our collection. What do you see? Talk about the things in the painting and how close or far away they look. Basically, we are looking at a painting with four things in it. A large black horse, which takes up nearly half the painting, a railway track, a long black train, and a sign that faces away from us on the far left. Do you think the horse is large or small in real life? What about the train? We assume that the horse is large and that it is close to us based on the way the artist has painted it. As I pointed out a moment ago, the horse fills nearly half of the painting. It appears close to us because its feet are near the bottom and its head is near the top of the picture. I suspect that everyone will also say that the train is very large, full-sized, even though it takes up only a small part of the painting. This is because our brains know that things that are farther away from us look smaller. They also appear higher in the picture. This is called perspective, and we use it to create that illusion of space that we talked about a moment ago. We are going to talk specifically about linear perspective today, which means using lines to show distance. The lines can be those that we actually see in the painting, like the edges of a road or a railway, the tops and sides of buildings and other outlines. But they can also be lines that the artist used to determine the size of things that are closer and farther away. These lines don't appear in the painting. They are just used by the artist for measurement. So, linear perspective tells us two things. First, things that are close to us are larger, and things that are far away are smaller. More importantly, the decrease in size follows a mathematical system. The easiest way to see this rule is to look for triangles. Second, horizontal lines, lines that run from side to side, remain horizontal when we use linear perspective. But parallel lines, that is the lines that are always the same distance apart in real life, like the edges of a railway track, will appear to get closer and closer the farther away from us they go. The place where the lines converge, or where they come together, is called the vanishing point, and we can use a single vanishing point to plan a whole picture. Let's go back to the painting now to see how this artist has used perspective. In the real world, railway rails, the metal part of the track that the train rides on, are always the same distance apart. They are parallel. They do not get closer together, which makes sense since trains do not change their width. But look at the painting. At the bottom corner, the rails are far apart, like the horse taking up almost half the width of the painting. But if you follow the lines up towards the train, you can see that they get much closer. That is, the space between them gets smaller. If you are looking closely, you'll also notice that the rails get thinner. Just to be sure, let's measure the space between the tracks in 3 different places. And now let's compare those 3 lines. You'll see that from bottom to top, they are each smaller than the last. And what is even more interesting is the shape our comparison makes. A triangle. This tells us that the decrease in size follows a predictable pattern. One more test is to look at the width of the individual railway ties, those wooden beams in between the tracks. We'll compare 4 different ties, every third one, and we find the same results. The lines become smaller and they form another triangle. If the track had been straight, we would also have seen a triangle there, as the rails move back towards the vanishing point. But in this case, the artist has used a curving track to make the composition more interesting, and also to ensure that we can see both the horse and the whole train. Has he used this technique anywhere else? Take a look at the train. We see the front of the train nearly head-on, but thanks to the curve in the track, we can also see its entire length. Notice how the shape of the train changes. The lines get smaller, showing us that the back of the train is much farther away than the front. This helps us understand the length of the train. About halfway through the length, the edges become parallel. That is, that they stop getting closer together because at that point the train runs horizontally across the painting before it hits the curve. The artist has used linear perspective in one more part of the painting, but this one is harder to notice at first. When we look at the horse, it may seem that the shape is a bit strange. The back end of the horse is quite large compared to its head. This is perspective once again. When I superimpose a sketch the artist made in preparing for this painting, you'll understand. He built a three-dimensional grid around the horse to help him see how perspective affects the proportions of the horse's body as it moves away from us. Notice how the lines from this grid all come together on one side of the painting. This is one-point perspective, with a vanishing point right on the signpost. Colville is an artist who carefully plans every aspect of his work. Before a final painting, there are many sketches where he tries out different arrangements of the important elements in order to find the most interesting and often most dramatic composition. When we look at Horse and Train, there is one more interesting element that the artist has used in order to create drama, though it is not related to perspective in this case. In the past, some people believed that the only time a horse had all 4 feet off the ground when galloping was with its legs stretched out in front and behind, almost like it was flying. Others didn't think a creature so large could ever have all 4 feet off the air at once. In 1878, a photographer named Edward Muybridge was commissioned to photograph a galloping horse to decide this once and for all. This series of split-second photos is the result. As you can see, there is a moment where the horse is airborne, but it is in fact when all 4 feet are underneath the horse. We see this information also used by Colville. If you look closely, we see this horse's feet are all in the air under its body. This is important because it lets us know that this horse is moving fast in a full gallop. This is an important piece of information we're trying to figure out the rest of the picture. In all of these examples, the artist has used perspective to create a convincing illusion of space. When we look at the painting, we understand that the horse and the tracks are receding into the distance, and that the train is far away but moving forward. In a way, the painting can act like a window into another world. Colville's use of perspective is important in creating a scene that looks real, but even more, he has used this perspective to create a tense and dramatic painting. This is something that we find a lot in Colville paintings. He is fond of showing us a moment just before something is about to happen. And with Colville, it is often something bad. In this case, we see a horse running on a railway track. The rails of the track recede quickly into the distance, and he has made sure we see and follow them by painting them a light color. The rails lead us to the train, which is also moving, we think, down the track towards the horse. And this is the moment he leaves us. Perspective emphasizes our feelings of movement, speed, and of dread. What is going to happen next? The artist has used all of his technical skills, including perspective, to capture and freeze this moment in time. We may have hopes or fears for the horse, but this carefully planned image leaves us wondering. In some cases, we can use art very effectively to teach us about math concepts. And in other cases, we learn how an artist with a good understanding of math can use that skill to create an interesting, believable, and dramatic work of art. Colville has done a good job at balancing both. When you have a chance, I hope you'll come to the gallery to see the painting in real life.